Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined by Kevin Townsend, the head football coach at Freeland. How are you, Kevin?
I'm great, Casey. Thanks for having me.
Well, I know it's always a good off season when you're playing football in Freeland or really anywhere. But how was the off season for you guys, and also summer workouts, and then of course what's going on this week in Freeland with your team? Are you guys lifting weights? Are you guys what's is this week off? Because I know all these teams do all these
Yep.
different things.
Yeah, so summer was obviously great for us. Last year we have three young men, Brigham Smith, who started for us as a sophomore at defensive end, and Zach Clark and Brody Geth, another sophomore. They were all out for the season last year. Brigham tore his ACL in the state finals of wrestling against Lowell. Zach broke his thumb early in the season, and Brody tore some meniscus in his knee. So got all three of those guys back that are healthy. So it's great to have them back in there. We hired a strength coach who was able to come in and put not just football, but every single sports program from girls all the way through everybody. Had him for 6 weeks, and he did an amazing job for us. And our typical 7-on-7s who went away to Northwood for a 3-day team camp that we typically do, and that was great. So a lot of team bonding, but we're off this week. Gave the kids the week off to go rest. We had media day with Saginaw News yesterday, and we've got it tomorrow in morning in Ithaca. So just kind of finishing things up, and hopefully everybody's getting their physicals, and we're ready to roll next Monday.
Absolutely. All right. What's the outlook for Freeland this coming season?
Well, we have 28 seniors coming back. So we've got 8 kids that have started since they were sophomores. Obviously, I think the buzz kid for us is Tristan Comer, our big left tackle, who
Yep.
committed to Michigan State, and Xander Wheatley just got offered by Cornell last Monday. He's been offered by Saginaw Valley and Northwood at wide receiver and for defensive back for him. Wilson Huckabee just got offered to Saginaw, or just committed to Saginaw Valley for basketball. Max Hine, who was our leading rusher last year, was an all-region running back. He's moved to quarterback. Kyle Colby, who was at Northwood, who holds quite a few records in their football program at quarterback, will be our new offensive coordinator, and we'll be running more pistol veer, no more wing T stuff from Freeland. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, we're super, super excited about what we've got coming in.
Yeah. You mentioned, of course, Tristan committing to Michigan State and a lot of these kids. And for a while, I think you said a couple years ago, I mean, when Sam committed to Harvard, it was a lot of Power Five schools are now taking notice with your program. What is that? What's that like to get some big names? And I know always colleges have looked everywhere for talent, but what's it like to receive it hasn't been that long since the last Power Five kid to go or D1 kid.
Yeah, so for me, it was really like kind of overwhelming when it first started, and so Tristan's going to be that kid that kind of helps me get those kids to the next level, and I think that's how Wheatley got, in connection with Cornell. But we had Indiana's offensive line coach to Oregon State's O line coach to Michigan State's O line coach. Um, every day showing up to our weight room and watching Tristan lift. And that kind of motivated some other boys to see, what it's like to have these college coaches come in. And so I'm really glad that it got wrapped up. I would love for Xander to maybe commit before our season started, but that's really quick. And I don't want him jumping into anything, with either, just to get away from those distractions and things. But it was fun. I got to take Tristan to Western Michigan for his visit there, and Coach Wheeler took Tristan to Michigan State for his visit, and Oregon State flew Tristan and his whole family out there. And I was born in West Virginia, so when Tristan went down and visited in West Virginia, Rich Rod's back in town, and they had a conversation with Rich Rod's right-hand man, Dusty, and Dusty and I had conversations up at Central Michigan at the Coach of the Year clinic 15 years ago, type of thing. So kind of things come in full circle, and you see some of these coaches that you've known for quite a few years, and for them to show up in a little town like Freeland. Again, I think we've been on the map for a couple of years. We still can't get over that hump of what we need to get to, but people are starting to take notice that we've got some pretty good kids in our program.
Absolutely. So really coming in, just some of the other notable returners or some of the guys that will be making an impact for Freeland this year.
Yeah, we've got like a kind of a three-headed monster, and then a junior thrown in there. Parker Latner, Kellen East, and Keenan Cooper are all three special running backs that we have. They're all like bulldozer type kids. And Ryan Watkins is a junior who we think is going to give us some good minutes in there too. Having Braden Petrie on your team for 4 years, that speed kid for us this year is Carson Worth. He's a kid that can take the top off, a really good baseball player. But he can take the top off. Max played quarterback his freshman and sophomore year. But Max Hine will be our quarterback this year. Like I said, led our team in almost every statistical category of rushing last year. But we've made the offense built around him where he'll be able to run the ball and then have some RPOs. And when you've got some decent tight ends and wide receivers like Wilson Huckabee and Xander Wheatley, we hope we're matchup problems for some of the teams. And like I said, with Tristan back at left tackle, Nevin Malakari is our right tackle, Bryson Lynch is at center. Those guys are all back, except throwing Brigham Smith and Zach Clark, the two kids that were injured back in there. Gage Summers, we really like him at one of our offensive line positions too. He's a junior that's coming in pretty strong kid. Garrett Kane, there'll be a 3-year starter at defensive line who can also come in at offense. So we've got some monstrous pieces. We lost some huge pieces. Jake Mativa being our quarterback, who also played defense for us, was great in the secondary, and having obviously Petrie and Owen Case at running back, you get that leadership stuff. But I think Caden Gersney and Keegan Walton at inside linebackers will be, we got to have some young kids step up and play those positions for us.
Absolutely. All right. Now we've talked about a lot of the kids. Let's talk about the upcoming schedule for you guys. Starting on the road at Saginaw United on August 28th to open the season. September 5th, week 2, again, home against Bridgeport. September 12th at Saginaw Swan Valley for week 3. September 19th, home against Flint Powers Catholic. September 26th at Alma. October 3rd at Essexville Garber. October 10th, home against Bay City John Glenn. October 17th at Frankenmuth, and finishing out the regular season October 24th, home against Cadillac. So pretty good schedule. We all know how tough your division is, but what's the outlook in terms of the conference this year?
Yeah, so obviously you got a Saginaw United, with a year underneath their belt, and they got a couple wins in there, which is awesome for their program and for their community. Rumors have it that their stadium's not going to be ready, which we're disappointed about that, because that was going to be kind of a home and home thing where we got to go and play at the brand new stadium, be the first game. So there are rumors that game might get moved to Arthur Hill, which I think would be amazing, because I think if there's two stadiums, that I would love to be able to coach a game, and I think Arthur Hill is one of them just for the nostalgia aspect of it. And I'd love to play one at Bay City Central too. I think just being downtown and wrapped into that area. So, so I think they'll be obviously much improved. We got Bridgeport, like you said, at home. That's our senior night. We're doing that early, just the way that our schedule falls. And that as a brand new coach, in Bridgeport. So the film that you have from last year is kind of out the window. You got to go to Swan Valley. Always tough to play there. Colton Klein, a 4-year starting quarterback, graduating, gone, but you have probably one of the best wide receivers in the state of Michigan, and Jamison Pelton you got to worry about there. Maybe heard he committed to Grand Valley. I'm not sure.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. And then Flint Powers, that's our big Clash for a Cure game. And that's just kind of a big emotional, day for everybody that goes through there. So a lot of distractions with that game. And, Jeremy Furman running the T there, a second year under his belt and starting to put his kids in his position where he wants them. So you could never look past them. Alma, brand new head coach, brand new stadium. So that'll be exciting to go over there. Got to go to Garber. Again, I think this is Dave's second year there, so he's still just getting things kind of going. And then I think John Glenn will be the kind of the dark horse of the conference. They've got some prolific players and a great coaching staff. Some young kids that have got 18, 19 games under their belt, the opportunity to get into the playoffs last year. They're our homecoming game. So again, distractions for us there. Obviously got to go to Muth, week 8. And then, Cadillac coming to our place last year, beat them 28-6 last year. Don't know the kid's name, but 6'6" freshman quarterback, broken collarbone, so didn't play against us last year. We did see him in basketball, so a pretty special athlete. I'm guessing he'll be there as a sophomore, and by the time they get to us, they've got 8 games under their belt. But, we really got to have obviously 9 wins if we want to be home. We've been able to stay home week 1 with 8 wins, but if not, we're going on the road just because we play so many Division 5 schools. But with United being a 2, Cadillac being a Division 3, and John Glenn being Division 3, we'll get some more points, for playing a little bit bigger schools in that aspect. But we don't get to control the rest of those conference games. So I think right now we've got August 28th circled on the calendar, and see where we go from there, and take one game at a time, I guess.
Absolutely. Um, okay, so a couple more things. I believe, what year is this for you? I believe it is year
20th.
20.
My 20th, yeah. Yeah.
So I obviously, when you're at something for 20, when you do something for 20 years, it's a big accomplishment. To see how much this program has grown since you've taken the job here at Freeland. What has that been like, and what's it just like to be a part of this community and be
Like,
doing it for 20 years?
I spoke at the Lansing Clinic twice. I'm actually speaking at our Chamber of Commerce on August 21st about just that. Just things from, when I started here, we had a grass field, and obviously we have some amazing people in our community that have helped us do things, and went to a turf field, and then built a new locker room, and then built a weight room. And, we just had our 14th year golf outing on Saturday. A full golf outing is 36 teams. We have 45 teams. We rented out the entire 27 holes of the golf course, and we're able to fill it, and made a lot of money for the program. And it's all by former athletes coming through, and community members chipping in, and just a great time of having people come out and support our kids, and not worrying about whether they're going to win a golf outing, because it's not about that. It's about raising money for it. But again, when I left that Lansing clinic, people would ask me, how'd you do this and do this? And my response to them was, just do one of them. Just find one thing to do to make your program better, and just keep doing it every single year. And it's funny, because when kids graduate, they'll come back the next year and go, oh, you guys got this. We didn't have that. Well, you had a lot of things, right? But you have to find something every single year to keep enhancing and to keep building, your program, and to keep challenging the kids. We just did a big community project in town here, where we stained a deck and took a lot of playground equipment and got some trees and stuff cut down, and the boys all did that. And then I took them out to Riverside restaurant here in town for lunch, and we had a gentleman walk up to us, and he knew who I was. He knew who Coach Wheeler was. I didn't know who he was, but obviously we talked to our kids about how important it is to be a role model in the community, because people look up to our football players, right? And especially the little guys. And so I think, when you get to be 20 years, the wins and losses are just things that kind of happen, but it's the kids that you've made impacts to. Like I said, the number of football players that came back to play at our golf outing, you're making a difference somewhere in their lives, that they still want to have, contact with you and support your program and things like that. So that's where I think I'm at in my career right now. I mean, this will be the first time in 20 years that I haven't called the offense. So like I said, Kyle Colby will be calling the offense, and Jesse Chicano will be calling the defense. And I'm just kind of be a head coach and go through things and control all the other chaotic things that happen throughout a season that people don't see. They just see Friday night, not what it takes to get to there.
Absolutely. Well, I know that there's a lot of things that do need to be done in the next few weeks. Of course, all the logistical things that, of course, with the equipment and making sure everyone's physical is in and all that other stuff. So what are the next few weeks going to look like for this program? And of course, it's all starts on the 11th. We go to helmets, then we go to shoulder pads, and of course pads at the end of the week. And then, you got the scrimmage next week at your place that you host.
Yeah. So we run a program. We don't run football teams. And so, on opening day, we'll set up 5 or 11 5-minute stations where they rotate around for 5 minutes 11 times. So we have an hour of conditioning where all the coaches are out running those different stations. We mix the juniors with the seniors and the freshmen and sophomores, and they get to see it's not just all, one team put together. And I would tell you 99% of our kids have helmets already, because they got those before we went to our team camp. You got to strategize of when you're going to get shoulder pads on kids and make sure everything fits everybody and such as we go through with that. But, just the way our locker room is designed, we've got 3 kind of big bays in there. There's a varsity bay, a JV bay, and a freshman bay. And it's little things of, like, our varsity kids have got to keep that locker room pristine because those freshmen are looking up to them. And if the locker room is dirty on the senior side, then why can't it be on the freshman side? So teaching, those the now current seniors to be the role models and to fill the shoes that the seniors had left before. So these freshmen know how to do that. And our freshmen, this will be their first time ever playing football where there's no more weight limits, right? It doesn't matter how big or little you are. You want to run the ball or play quarterback, you can do so. And so, understanding that and these kids that were, number 92 and they're playing quarterback because that's what they were in third grade. They can't with their numbers anymore. So strategically finding jersey numbers. And like I said, there's so many little tiny things that go in behind the scenes. And we've got our Clash for a Cure game, like we said, week 4. And those are custom jerseys with names being put on them. And so that stuff has to get ordered and mouthpieces. And we might have enough helmets, but we might not have the right helmets that fit people. So then you're trying to get a hold of Rydell to speed rush things into you. So there's so much that goes in. And then again, I hope this doesn't happen, but what we do on our first day is we make everybody stand up in the bleachers. We call your name off. If you sit down, you've got a physical. If you're still standing, you don't, right? And you got to go home immediately or get to the doctors immediately so we can count that day as one of your 2 days, because we are the only sport that when you miss that Monday, Friday, when we're full pads, you're not. And now you've fallen behind. And then Saturday, we practice on that Saturday as well, just because of how our scrimmage falls in order for us to get our 9 days in. We run a green-white game on that day. And it's usually our starting quarterback and our backup center and our backup quarterback and our starting center. They're the captains for the team, and they draft it like a fantasy football team. The kids don't know. It's only the coaches in the room. And it's pretty cool to see when you see a sophomore getting picked over a senior. He's getting picked over a senior because the players know who can play, right? And so if you're a dude, you're coming to varsity and you're playing. I mean, that's just how it is for us, is that our freshman and JV levels are about developing kids and trying to get every single one of those kids into the game. And our varsity program is about winning. And I think we're going to have an interesting season for that fact. When you have 28 seniors, we've got 50 kids on the varsity football team. We had to put 20 more lockers in the locker room this year. We have 116 kids kind of run out for football, which are great things, obviously, in Freeland. But trying to get 50 kids into a game is a hard task to do. And then, it comes to a lot of things like what happens if you're up 40-0 at halftime and you bench your starters. Well, their stats are going to be terrible, right? So then you go to all conference voting and your kid doesn't have the stats. Well, that's because we benched our kids, right? With it. So you just have all these little nuanced things that are going on behind the scenes that people don't see, and they see their kid, and that's what they're watching, on Friday night for the opportunity to get in. And so I don't know. Like I said, I'm to the point in my career where just my opinion, and this, I always tell my parents this, and this is me being cocky, I guess. I said, in my opinion, the last time I checked, that's the only opinion that counts, is that I've never had a kid in my life that was so amazingly good. And we said, let's bench him and play the really bad kid, right? You don't. We're giving kids opportunities, and you're not at practice every single day. And you don't know why. We do. And so my big message to my parents this year, and I would tell this parents across the board, is just talk to your kids. Talk to your kids and ask them how football is going. And if they're not getting to do the things they want to do, ask them why. And if it's because they're not the best kid, then work harder to become the best kid. Because I can promise you this, I'm not the best football coach. I know that. If I was, I'd have 20 state championship rings, right? So I'm trying to find things every single year to make us better. And I'm not blaming Phil Martin for kicking my ass every single year or for Tom Allward for anything else, right? We lost by 1 to Muth last year, who lost the state championship, and we lost by 6 to Goodrich, who won the state championship. So we know where we're at. It's our job as coaches to get the most we can out of these kids to get over that hump.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for the time as always, and best of luck to Freeland this year.
Appreciate you, Casey. Thank you, buddy.